There we are. Now let's do our live stream check. Not yet. Repeat. There we go. And I'll click the little button to share. Okay, so we're back to do another thingy booba 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 booba. And so I'm going to, like I did last time, just to make it easier when I put it together for the published version, I'm going to play the same break I did at the end of the last live stream, and then I will pick it up after that. So right. Didn't that sound great? It sounded great, right? It sounded wonderful. Yeah. Here we go.
Okie dokie. Here it comes. It is just my internet being stupid.
My internet is being stupid is a new song we will make.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
Oh, I'm tired. What's wrong? I'm really tired.
It's amazing.
Get the show on the road.
There's a road? There's a road? Oh my God, there's a road.
And here I am again. So let's see. Now it is Monday, October 21st, just before 2 UTC. So that's still Sunday night, West Coast time where I am, US West Coast time. So we'll finish this sucker up, and then we'll edit it up, and then we'll send it out. And my editing at this point is very light. I'm trying to do like absolute minimal, like just you see what you get. You see, well, on the audio podcast you see nothing. On YouTube you get to see a little bit more getting ready and stuff. And I don't know, like if there's lots of coughing and stuff, I'll get rid of that. If my son interrupts me, I'll get rid of that. But otherwise it's just straight on through. Like, I don't care. Like, I mean, I do care, but it takes too much time to care, so I don't care, if you know what I mean. So let me start out. My voice did a little start thing like there. Since I did that last segment, there have been, of course, new polls. There are new polls all the time now. And so just to highlight the things that changed, basically, Pennsylvania went for, I mean, there were polls in a bunch of states, but these are ones that matter. Pennsylvania moved from just barely Harris back to just barely Trump. Meanwhile, Wisconsin went from just barely Trump to just barely Harris. And some others moved around a little bit. The tipping point moved from Trump by 0.1 back up to Trump by 0.9. So back sort of in Trump's direction overall is the general sense of this. And my accounting for time left odds got a little bit worse for Harris, now at between 17.9% and 28.3%, with all the caveats I gave before. The one thing that I forgot, I think I started down this road, but forgot, was on the polling, like, why would the red state pollsters, why would the Trump-leaning pollsters care about flooding the zone? And I sort of went off to, well, maybe they actually believe it, and maybe they do. But I forgot to get back to the other reasons. Like, if you think they're doing it, like, if you think they know that they're pushing things in the direction of their candidate beyond real life, then why would they do that? One reason is just like, hey, it'll make Trump happy. He likes to see good numbers, maybe. Another reason would be like, hey, you want to discourage the Democrats. You might want to make them think that Trump is winning and it's hopeless, and why bother staying home, or why bother voting, just stay home. I don't know if I buy that one that much, because like for that to like be an effect, you want to see like, I mean, yes, people will stay home because it's hopeless if it's hopeless. Like if, oh my God, Trump is winning by 18,000 points in every swing state. But even if you take these Trumpy pollsters at face value and don't even include them in an average, it still shows a close race. It still shows like, maybe Trump's ahead by a little bit, but certainly within shooting distance for the Democrats. Most of them are showing margin of error. Even the like most optimistic Trump ones are showing like within margin of error still. So I don't know if I buy that. Like, if anything, that will encourage turnout. Like, oh my God, it's close. I gotta vote. Or or we're just barely losing, and maybe if I vote, we won't be. I don't know. Like, I don't buy that. The other thing that people are saying is they're trying to set up the narrative for contesting the votes. Like, if it turns out that Donald Trump does lose these states, but narrowly, they can point to a whole bunch of a whole bunch of polls showing Trump was actually ahead in those states. How could he possibly have lost? He was ahead. And just to make it more plausible for whatever things they end up deciding to contest. I don't know. I honestly, like, I feel like the most likely outcome, not outcome, the most likely motivation is actually these right-leaning pollsters actually believe their polls. Are they flooding the zone to make the narrative match their own views? Sure. Like, they're putting out a lot of polls, and I can certainly see that. And those other motivations, maybe there's some of that there. I don't know. But I feel like these pollsters are they constructing their models in a way such that the results match what they want to see? Probably. But I'm guessing most of them actually feel like that's the truth. Like, they do a turnout model that represents what they think is going to happen, which involves more Republicans turning out. I don't know. Anyway, enough of that. I said I was done with polls, and it was time to talk about other stuff. This is basically all election 2024 stuff, and almost all of it is going to be at the presidential level. So that's what you're getting. I guess I'll go through some of these things roughly in the order that we noted them down in our potential topics list. So over the course of the week. One is just the Trump campaign, and comes from both Harris and Vance, is really double and tripling down on the racism. Like, and there should be no surprise to this. I mean, it's been a continuous theme of Donald Trump's presidential races since the moment he came down the escalator in 2015. And so there's no surprise here, but it's more and more and more overt, less hiding. I mean, there hasn't been much hiding in a while, but it's like, it's getting to be so blatant. And all the Haitian stuff was part of it, but I mean, like, the comments on, they don't care if they're legal. Vance said something along the lines the other day of like, yeah, well, I'm still going to call them illegal. And I don't have a list of examples in front of me because I'm stupid and unprepared, but it just seems like it's been ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And I guess this has happened the other elections too. It's like, I'm surprised there haven't been like live video covering a caravan of migrants coming up from Central America, because that seemed to happen every election for several elections in a row. Because the reality is that's happening all the time. They just chose to highlight it during election season. But it's so discouraging every time you see something new, and you know to expect it, and you know it's their thing. You know it's the key. It's the core of Trumpism, like racism and grift, basically. I mean, it's like the fundamental theme is, I mean, make America great again. It's all about, let's go back to some previous America where, you know, the white male Christian ruling class was in charge and didn't have to think about anybody else. So it's not surprising when there's a new comment or whatever. I mean, there have been AI generated images that they're sharing all over social media that are just scary looking foreigners being violent. It's so annoying, so discouraging. And the fact that it resonates with so many people in this country is even scarier. I mean, I've said this before, but yes, Trump is scary. But the thing that's really depressing is not Trump himself. It's not even how the Republican Party has capitulated to him. It's that enough of the American population likes what he's putting out that this race is within the margin of error. And we can't, like, it could go either way. Like, the fact that this isn't an absolute freaking blowout with the Democrats winning, like if the Republicans put up something like this, is just depressing to every level of my existence. It's just, and again, it's an entirely different thing. Like, I know some people did, but I don't feel that way. You know, or I didn't feel that way about Romney or McCain or even W or the older Bush or Reagan. You know, like, I had problems with each and every one of those Republicans I listed. Still do. And God knows, like, Clinton and Obama and Biden aren't perfect, and neither is Harris. But those other older style Republicans, I didn't automatically think, okay, if you support them, there's a problem with you too. You know, it's like, it's the difference between, you know, arguing on the margins of about policy stuff, or even like, yeah, they sort of are really bad in certain areas to certain populations I care about, but they at least, I don't know. Trump is a whole different world. I feel like I had no problems being friends with somebody who was like a Romney supporter. agree to disagree kind of things. But given what Trump is, I can't, like, I don't feel like if I know somebody's a Trump supporter, I can't have, I mean, I'm going to be civil to them in the grocery store or something, but they're certainly not somebody I'm going to like do something socially with. I'm sorry. It's beyond the pale morally. And they're doubling down on it. They're doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on it as we get to the end. I'm going to be a little scattered with these. That's okay. Whatever. Do you care? Next up, there's been a lot of talk. Depending on who you talk to, you'll hear people either praising Kamala Harris's strategy at this point, or the complete opposite, saying that this is guaranteeing she's going to lose, etc. And that's that she has been really spending most of her time at this point trying to nail down the center. She's been campaigning with the former Republicans that support her, Liz Cheney and all of those folks. They had some events specifically related to that, like, Republicans for Harris in Pennsylvania and some other stuff. She's also been going on, a variety of shows that appeal towards less political folks. And that's not so much a go after the center as a go after the apathetic or the people who aren't following politics too much. But also, like, policy wise, she's been saying things like, oh, I'm going to have a bipartisan council of advisors. I'm going to put a Republican in my cabinet. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And the interpretation of that is, of course, that she is trying to set up something where disaffected Republicans who don't like Trump can feel comfortable potentially voting for her. And so she's going after that sort of audience of, can I get some people who voted for Trump in 2020 or 2016 to vote for me instead? Or at least keep them from voting for Donald Trump again. Give them enough context to be like, I never really thought that I would vote Democrat, but she doesn't seem that bad. Maybe I can vote for her. And there are a lot of folks who think that is absolutely 100% the right strategy, and that is the audience she should be going after. But there's a vocal minority out there that I see posts from on Mastodon all the time who are basically it's the successors of the Bernie or Busters, who are basically like, she's not saying what I want her to say on the Gaza situation. She's not liberal enough on this situation. I don't like the fact that she's talking to Republicans. And therefore, she hasn't earned my vote. I'm not going to vote for her. Whatever. And what she should be doing is courting us leftists. And, going after us and coming in our direction. And look, I have said here with Yvonne a couple weeks ago that I'm not sure there's much room to do much on the persuasion side to like actually convert Trump voters to Harris voters. And I think it should really be about get out the vote and all this kind of thing. But I think the people to go after are sort of those people who aren't paying attention or who are more apathetic or just not tuned into politics, and get more of those people to vote. I don't think it's about courting the far left. You know, the far left is going to do whatever they're going to do. I have seen a number of posts by people who did withhold their votes in 2016, who either didn't vote or voted for Jill Stein or whatever. I've seen a number of posts from those kind of people saying, I made a mistake. I made a fucking mistake. Those of you who are talking like this again in 2024, like, I know a lot of you are too young to remember 2016. And that's one of the things too, as like someone like me who's, 50 plus. I remember 2020. I remember 2016. I remember 2000 and freaking Ralph Nader. I remember all these things. It's been 8 years since 2016. There are a lot of people who are now potential voters who tend to say things like that and be like, I couldn't possibly vote for Harris because she's got the wrong position on issue X, even though they're on the left-hand side of things and you'd presume don't like Donald Trump, or say things like it's the lesser of two evils and I'm not going to vote for any evil and blah 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 blah. There are a lot of people out there who it's their first time through that rodeo and they don't remember the others. And so some of these videos of the people who did that in 2016, I think are instructive. I hope it changes the minds of some of those people who are talking that way this time, but it probably won't. I mean, at a certain point, those folks are stuck. Yeah, the bottom line is, I'm sorry, a vote is not an endorsement. A vote is it is not a. I want to be careful with words because you can endorse somebody and say yes, you should vote for them without actually. A vote is not saying that you agree with all that person's positions. A vote for them is not saying you think that person should be a saint. It is saying that of the available choices, that it's a chess move. And look, I'll admit, like, I remember saying that crap myself when I was in my 20s. Like, I voted for fucking Ross Perot. I voted for libertarians at various points in time. And I'm like, you don't get bonus points for picking the winner. You should pick the person who most agrees with you. And with the wisdom of age, that is bullshit in the American system. If we had a parliament with proportional representation, okay, maybe go for it. Makes sense. You vote for the person who's closest to you, and then they will work in coalition with other groups to do whatever. Maybe, yeah. But we don't. We live in a system that is winner take all, first past the post. And that means that realistically, you got two choices. Even if they both suck, you pick the one that's better. And anyway, I think the right, some of those folks are hopeless. You're not going to convince them. But I think there's very little juice left to squeeze from the people who voted for Trump before, and you want them not to this time. maybe there's some juice there, but I don't think there's a lot. I think the place where they would get the most impact is getting the center leftish, but less likely to vote people, getting them out the door, or getting some of the people who just haven't been paying attention and don't think politics is useful, the people who are sort of completely disaffected and believe that, you know, their vote doesn't matter. Those are the people to get out. And speaking of that briefly, I want to highlight my stepmom, Kathy Sunshine, on October 19th posted to her Substack an article that I would recommend to people. It's titled "Welcome to the Hotel Pennsylvania," and you'll find it on thirdage.substack.com. And basically, she's spending like most of the month of October doorbelling in Pennsylvania near Harrisburg. And it's a post about her experiences there. I'll give a couple quotes here. One, well, I'll give this one example. Read the whole article. It's a really good article. Plug to her. Here's one paragraph. In the poorest neighborhoods, disinformation is rife. Many people believe that the pandemic stimulus checks bearing Trump's signature came from him personally, the exact deception he intended, and hope that if he is reelected, another check will arrive. That money was approved by Congress, I told one young woman, who stared at me blankly and asked, "What's Congress?" And that's the kind of thing that is out there. I mean, something like 40% of eligible voters don't vote. I think getting them is hard, but that's where the biggest pool of people you could potentially get comes from. But going after some of those disaffected Republicans, okay, fine, do some of that. But I think Harris is also doing what I was saying. She's going on like shows where they usually talk about sports. She's going on shows where they usually talk about entertainment or relationship. She's going on, non-political. She's going and doing interviews at non-political places. We talked about Howard Stern the other day. We talked about She's Your Daddy, whatever it is. Her daddy, who's her daddy? I don't know. I forget what the name of the damn thing is, but she's been on a bunch of that, and she's continuing to have been on a bunch of those kinds of shows. And I think that's the right place. And I think the people fixating on, oh, she's going after like Republicans and she's leaning to the center. I think that's the right place to lean. I mean, sorry, that's how American politics works. You run towards the center in general elections and you try to get in the middle. I know people on the left want somebody to run to the left, but that ends up, there are a lot of folks that, what's the right way to put this? I think you lose more people than you gain that way. Leftists may want to think that they're a silent majority, but they're no more a silent majority than the conservatives used to be. The center has the most people. And if you go too far to the left, you lose them and you lose the election. The best way to get to a lot of the results that sort of the far left that leftists say they want is to move incrementally in that direction more slowly. Sorry. I know they want rapid change and revolution and, get rid of the neoliberal capitalists and blah, blah, blah. Fast change. Some things need fast change. Look, I'll of course. But more generally, fast change is like more generally. Hold on, I have to make a note. More generally, though, like, you move things too fast, you get a huge backlash, you get violence, you get all kinds of bad things. You want to move more slowly. But electorally, the main thing is, even where I agree that we should go faster and the far left position is better, you end up losing. There's a real politique thing here of like, figure out how to win the freaking election. Then once you're in charge, maybe you can do some stuff. But you got to win the election first. And you don't win the election by alienating people. You want to build your coalition and get it as wide as possible. And I mean, we've got the Harris coalition right now goes from freaking Bernie Sanders to Dick fucking Cheney. They have both endorsed him. Could you imagine anything that would get Dick Cheney and Bernie Sanders on the same page a few years back? Come on. That's a massively wide coalition. Will it win? We'll find out. But I think concentrate on, I have no problem with her trying to convert to Republicans. And I think she's doing the right thing by going after these places where people pay less attention, congregate. And she is doing some of the more mainstream media, but I mean, come on, she doesn't need to go on fucking MSNBC. Those people are already voting for her. Go after the other places. Okay, next up, I guess I touched on this with the people like Stein. Stein specifically in the last 2 weeks, her campaign people, there've been a number of them caught, or people who are her supporters at Stein events have been recorded specifically saying things like, we know we can't win Michigan, but maybe we can keep Harris from winning. And you can't get more overt than that in terms of saying that the Stein campaign's objective is essentially to elect Donald Trump. That's what they're saying. If you keep Harris from winning a state like Michigan, then you're making sure Trump wins. They know that's the effect they're having, and they seem to be fine with that and be running with that. And this is the same damn thing with West. And, I don't know what's up with Oliver. But most of these folks, at this point, the positions in the polls of all of these folks are extremely small. And Kennedy's essentially gone to zero since he dropped out. He had already gotten close to there as soon as Harris took over from Biden. So the third party support right now is pretty damn small in comparison to where it sometimes is. But the problem is you've got these 7 states that are super close. So in order to make a difference here, these third parties don't need to get a lot. They just need to convince a few people who might have voted for Harris to vote for the third party instead, and they can flip the election. So, and Stein Stein specifically is such a damn grifter. You know, it's all about the scam, and you know, I'm sure she's making some money off it. She gets some attention every once in a while. You know, I don't know that there's a direct connection, but that whole like I'm going to sit with Putin a few years back, that picture still keeps coming up. You know, it's just there. I know the argument that these sort of esoteric third parties, well, even the big ones, like, okay, fine, Stein's with the Greens. They've always been like fourth or fifth level party in the U.S., but even like with the Libertarians, like the whole notion that this somehow gives visibility to their agenda and they're not going to win, but they're going to influence the conversation and blah blah blah. No, nobody's paying attention to any of that in terms of what they're actually saying. It's just at most right now a protest vote. It's like the place people go when they don't want to vote for either of the two main parties. But it's not serving sort of the view of, hey, we'll vote for the Greens or we'll campaign for the Greens and it'll give more prominence to their positions on a whole bunch of issues. Ditto with the Libertarians. It's not working. If that's your strategy, it's a failure. Because that's not what's happening with those votes. Okay. I'm gonna keep going through a few more of these. We'll be done soon though. Getting tired. I mentioned Harris, bypassing traditional media. Trump obviously has been too. He's been going on the right-wing podcasts and a few other places. He did go the closest thing to major media. He was on Fox the other day, on their morning, Fox and Friends, their morning program. He went on that Univision thing, which was a disaster for him. He got actual real questions from real human beings, and he completely failed to answer them. That audience looked so skeptical of everything he said. Because for once, it wasn't like an audience full of people who were already fawning all over him. But Trump has been not just like, people criticized Harris for avoiding traditional media, and she eventually did a few traditional media interviews and then was all over the place with non-traditional media. Trump, over the last week or two, has canceled something like 3 or 4 interviews he had scheduled with real places. Like he dropped out of one that he was going to do on CNBC. He dropped out of one that he was going to do on regular MSNBC. He dropped out of some podcast he was going to be doing that was sort of aimed at black men. There may have been another. I don't know. Those are the 3 I can remember. And obviously I don't remember the name of that third one. And one of his staff members, and this is the kind of thing a staff member should be fired for, honestly, but one of his staff members apparently told the venue they were backing out of that the reason they were backing out was he was exhausted. And he has looked exhausted at a variety of his venues lately. But that's not the kind of thing. Even if it's true, you don't say it. I mean, it looks like he's hiding. It looks like his campaign is keeping him from anywhere else where he might be exposed to a real question from somebody who is not already in the tank for him. I can't believe they let him do that Univision one. I mean, It was a disaster. But it would make sense that they're trying to keep him out of these things, because some of his rallies that are in front of diehard supporters are going really badly lately. I don't remember exactly when the whole, like, he's going to play music for 40 minutes thing happened. Like, did we talk about it last week? I don't remember. But, like, he also had a situation where his mic stopped working and he just stood around on stage for 20 minutes until they fixed it. You know, and look, tech issues happen. Although I'm honestly really surprised that for something like, oh, the microphone's not working, there wasn't a pretty damn quick fix. Like, why would that take 20 minutes to deal with? I mean, I don't know what was happening behind the scenes, but 20 minutes seems like a long time to, like, can we get him another mic? I mean, obviously it had to have been something more substantial wrong with that than that, right? I don't know. But, like, even assuming something real technical went down and they had to deal with it, don't just stand there. Like, have him go back into the green room, play some music then, and say he'll be back once we fix the tech problems or whatever. You know, they just having him stand out there looking lost for 20 minutes isn't the right thing. And all of this, you know, combines to the what's up with Trump's decline. Like, I can't remember how many times Yvonne and I talked over the years about, you know, is Trump losing it? And we always agreed something along these lines of, he's clearly not what he was in the 80s, but he's still fine. I mean, the same kind of thing we said about Biden, honestly. You know, it's like, is he much different than he was in 2015? We always said no, it's about the same. He was always rambly. He was always a little bit stupid. He was always, like, not quite understanding what he was really talking about. Uh and he was always a little off the wall and couldn't keep a coherent train of thought. Those things are always true. And they were to a degree. But they do seem to have gotten significantly worse just in the last few months. I mean, the latest thing is just within the last couple of days, he had some sort of rally. He spent, like, the first, I don't know, 10, 20 minutes or what? I don't know how long. Even if it was 1 minute. He spent the beginning talking about, let's see what, let me get the stupid name right. Let me make sure I want to quote the AP on this so that I don't, like, here's the AP headline. AP. Like, and we've been complaining about how, like, the major media, like, was sane washing a lot of this kind of stuff. And the New York Times kind of did that even with this event. But AP, Trump kicks off a Pennsylvania rally by talking about Arnold Palmer's genitalia. Really? Really? He has seemed to be less coherent. People pointed out that at the Fox and Friends thing, the people there, the hosts, seem to be guiding him around like a child, like, just to get to his seat and stuff. And then once they were talking to him, sort of coaching and trying to lead the conversation as he rambled. It's will it seems kind of obvious that it's getting worse and getting worse quickly. Will it make any difference? That's what we always ask, right? Like, will and I think the answer always comes down to, do the right people see it? And I think the answer for the most part is no. I mean, maybe some people actually at these rallies. I saw one clip of someone who was videoed leaving a Trump rally. I think I saw a clip. Maybe I read a quote. Whatever. But the person was like, I think he's past his expiration date. But this is the kind of thing where if you go to the places where the most Trump supporters are, hold on, pausing for barking. Jet ski, really? He usually stops after a couple minutes. Jet ski, shush. Okay, here we go. But if you go to the places where the most Trump voters are, like conservative podcasts, conservative blogs, Fox News, especially Fox News, for the most part, you don't see the craziest stuff. They're not taking his rallies live. If they show clips from it, they're going to show clips where it isn't the crazy stuff. They're not going to be having conversations about maybe Trump's past his expiration date, what's wrong with Trump, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, does the more barking? Just waiting for the barking to stop. Yeah, I see you. What's up? I'm trying to record. Are you done for now? Did you just poo in our bedroom? Is that what you're telling us? Yeah. Or are you about to? Because you'd like to do something that I can't do right now because I'm recording? You could take him, Alex. No. Hey, maybe when I'm done. It is dark, though. We don't usually do that at night. Yeah, I know. You know we have a backyard. You could use that. You could use the backyard. Yeah. What are you trying to say? Did I guess correctly and I'm just not paying attention to you and therefore, good boy. You want to cuddle with Alex? I'll check in with you later, okay? So sad. Dude, stop. Dude. Enough barking, okay? No barking. No bark. Now, does it get to some of those people that I was talking about before that just aren't paying attention very much? So not the diehard Trump partisans, but just people who aren't paying attention and blah, blah, blah. Maybe some, Saturday Night Live's making fun of it. There are clips all over TikTok. The mocking kind of stuff does seem to have the power of breaking through a little bit, and people will understand the mocking. And so if people are making fun of him for him being incoherent and such, maybe that part of the narrative gets out. But there's still, honestly, barking. Almost started. Honestly, I don't know how much this stuff will move the polls. Go or change the results or whatever. Honestly, I don't know how much this kind of stuff will change. Okay. Whatever's making that noise, please don't do it. Thank you. Dude. It's the touching the metal. It goes makes a little noise. Yeah, don't do that. I saw you. I'm looking at you. I saw it. Dude. Dude. Please. The dog is finally stopped. Don't you be the obstacle next. Honestly, I don't know how much of this stuff is going to change anything. I had that whole segment on the polls and moving a little bit this way, a little bit that way. But the bottom line is things have been pretty static for months. Like the vast majority of people in this country know where they stand on this, and nothing's going to change their mind. And even with this kind of thing, I mean, look, it's the same when we were talking about Biden and his potential limitations after the first debate. One of the things that Yvonne and I said all the time was, so what? If Biden can't make it through the 4 years, whatever, we got Harris. And Harris is fine. Is the same thought process going on in terms of Vance? Like, if you look at Trump over the next, if you look at what we've seen of Trump in the last few weeks, it's getting harder and harder to imagine him actually making it through 4 years. Do we really end up with a scenario that, he gets sworn in, assuming he wins, he gets sworn in on January 20th, and on January 21st, he makes a deal with Vance to resign and be pardoned or something? Now, I don't think Trump's ego could actually handle that, because, he doesn't quit anything. And that's like a core part of his personality. But could you see something where he doesn't want to be president? He's never wanted to be president. He wants the grift that he can get out of it, and he wants to be looked at as a winner. He hoped that that would finally get him the respect and recognition from the elites that he always craved. It didn't. He doesn't actually like the job of being president. He doesn't actually like the job of being president. He just wants everything that goes with it. So would he be perfectly happy just turning over all of the policy parts to people that actually care, and then, sign on the dotted line every once in a while? And then look, from everything we've heard, his biggest backers right now are the people who set up Vance as the VP choice. So do they really want Vance? Is that what they're really looking for? Or do they not care as long as it's someone easily controllable? That's probably more like it. But, I think the argument that a Trump vote is really a vote for Vance is not out of the question. If it, at the rate Trump is deteriorating, is he actually going to be able to do the job? I don't know. But it's certainly something to be thinking about. And I don't know, said a long time that what happens to the Republican Party after Trump? And there are a variety of possibilities, but the worst one is essentially someone like Trump, but smarter. And is that what we get with somebody like Vance? I mean, so far, he may be smarter in some sort of academic sense, but his political instinct seems pretty bad. He's been kind of disastrous on the campaign trail. So I don't know. But, on the Curmudgeon's Corner Slack, I think it was Bob who asked, if we get Vance, do we really get Thiel? Maybe it was Pete. I don't know. Whatever. And yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's what we get anyway. I mean, we got like Musk and Thiel and other folks like this clearly with a major influence on what's going on here. Their super PACs are going crazy, spending all kinds of money. One of the other things in the news this week was Musk apparently offering monetary rewards for people to register and stuff that, depending on what you read, is either on the verge of being illegal or definitely being illegal, depending on the exact details of how he did it. Like he's trying to exploit some sort of loophole to get around the requirement. But it's, yes, these billionaires are playing in this game and trying to exert their influence through choosing this person. Now, the thing with Trump in the past, and you'd think people would learn, right? Like the mainstream Republicans in 2016, when it became clear that Trump was going to be the nominee, many of them moved from fairly overtly saying that Trump would be a disaster, Trump was horrible, Trump was a racist, Trump was this, Trump was that, blah, 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 blah. Lindsey Graham doing his, if we elect Trump, it will destroy us comment, all this kind of thing, to getting all in behind him, because they felt that they could still manipulate him and get what they want. And look, they did, to a large extent. I mean, what are the things that a lot of these people cared about the most? Tax cuts and Roe versus Wade. They got their tax cuts for rich people, and they got the judges in place to overrule Roe versus Wade and to push conservative viewpoints on lots of other subjects. Like we still have all the fallout, on the changes to the what can be done with regulations and stuff like that that's gone through the Supreme Court. That's going to take a while to play out, but that's going to be very significant as well. So yeah, they got most of what they want, but at the same time, they got a loose cannon that did all kinds of stuff they would rather not happen. And so do we have these folks, are folks like Musk and Thiel assuming that they can control whatever comes out of this? And I don't know. They might. They probably can't control the whole thing, but maybe they don't need to. As long as they get a couple key things they want to like make sure you've got an administration that won't mess with their businesses, won't raise taxes, won't try to impose rules, et cetera, then yeah, they'll get what they want out of Trump or Vance. Musk seems to be all in on the racism. He'll certainly get that from Trump. Probably from Vance too. Like Vance, I wonder with Vance, like how much of what he says is because that's what he truly believes, and how much is him positioning himself in a certain way. I think he believes most of it. Okay, it's time to wrap this sucker up. One more news thing that came out this week that I just had to laugh at. Stormy Daniels and Stormy Daniels' lawyers apparently reached out to Rachel Maddow from MSNBC this week because they just wanted to tell an additional story. Like they were there was not to get all into the Stormy Daniels history, but there was a point where Stormy Daniels sued Donald Trump for him disparaging her. She lost that lawsuit. Even though Donald Trump lost the other big lawsuit with New York, not lawsuit, the criminal trial in New York about, the payoffs to Stormy Daniels and stuff. Stormy Daniels lost the lawsuit that she filed against Donald Trump and was ordered to pay all kinds of legal fees. So she owed hundreds of thousands of dollars to Donald Trump. And she had set up a GoFundMe and blah, 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 and raised a whole bunch of money and was ready to pay Donald Trump. And so her lawyers and Trump's lawyers were negotiating on the amount. And they disagreed on the amount. Of course, Donald Trump's lawyers felt that she owed more. Stormy Daniels felt that she owed less. But Donald Trump's lawyers basically came back with, you know what? We'll let it go with the lower number if you sign another NDA that you won't talk about Donald Trump anymore. And this was not years ago. This was like this summer that just ended. And they are once again trying to pay off Stormy Daniels to make her shut up. Does she have anything new to say? No, it doesn't look like she has anything new to say. Everything she has to say, she said already. She's described everything about their encounter in multiple venues at this point. So it wasn't about not letting something new come out. At least it certainly doesn't seem that way, because Stormy Daniels, by the way, laughed at this, and they did not sign any new NDA or anything like that. So if there was something more, she could certainly come out and say it. No, it's just he doesn't want her saying it again. He just doesn't want her talking. He just hates what she had to say. And so it's just like he just got convicted for doing this crap, for trying to get her to sign an NDA in the lead up to an election because of the potential influence on the election. And he just did it again. The exact same thing. It's just like for what's her name? The woman he raped in the department store, where every time he gets a legal judgment, it seemed like he went out and just defamed her again. E. Jean Carroll, that's her name. Because he's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. They say I'm guilty. They say I owe money for it. Whatever. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I mean, he has seemed to be a little bit more quiet about E. Jean Carroll lately, but, she hasn't been in the news as much lately. Anyway. Stormy again. And with that, let us say goodbye. I will say, let's look at what is the time left now? As I'm finishing up this recording, 15.8 days until polls start to close on election night. And I talked about the beginning. That's partial states. It's 1 hour later for full states. Anyway, 2 weeks, basically. 2 weeks. We're almost done here. Well, we're almost at the election. We may or may not know the result on election night. And there may or may not be chaos like 4 years ago after the election. I would assume that if it's even remotely close, we're once again going to see 60 lawsuits from the Trump people on every single possible thing. And they certainly seem to be setting up to try to do some January 6th-ish thing again if they could. I feel like anything assuming they lose, again, he could win legitimately, but assuming they lose, I feel like any attempts to try to do something like that will be less successful than they were last time. just because, you know, well, and this is one of the things that makes me think like Harris's polls are underestimated. That they're underestimating Harris. Like the enthusiasm gap really does seem real. It's I don't know. It's not quantified. It's not whatever. But there's so many anecdotes of like less enthusiasm on the Republican side. You've got his small rallies. You've got less yard signs. You've got less people with their big Trump flags on their trucks. All of this stuff seems to be less than it was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. But we'll see. Okay. Go to curmudgeons-corner.com. You can find all the ways to reach us. You can find our transcripts. You can find our archive of shows going back to before we had we only have transcripts for like the last year and a half. I forget exactly what. But before that, you can find all our archives going all the way back to 2007. And of course, you can find our Patreon if you would like to give us cash money. At various levels, we will mention you on the show. We will ring a bell. We will send you a postcard. We will send you a mug. But at $2 a month or more, or if you just ask, we will invite you to the Curmudgeon's Corner Slack, where Yvonne and I and a bunch of other folks are chatting throughout the week, sharing links, all of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun. You should be there. If you were there right now, you could have gotten all kinds of information on exactly what Yvonne's illness was that kept him from doing the show this week. I'm sure you all like want to get into that detail and really understand exactly what is going wrong in Yvonne's body. Or maybe not. Let's see. What's a good highlight other than that from the Curmudgeon's Corner Slack? We've talked about return to office stuff. I don't even want to talk about it on the show. Yvonne posted something about neck restraints and motorsports. A few examples were posted about AI doing stupid things again. What else? Yeah, good enough. Like, well, people were talking about the DJT stock and potential manipulation or not there, and also manipulation of the election betting markets. I posted a really cool article from the New Yorker on how scientists are starting to decode bird songs. Cool stuff. All kinds of stuff. Okay. We are done. Time to end this show. Hopefully Yvonne will be feeling a lot better and be able to join us next week and the week after, and as we rush headlong into this election. But for everybody else, and for Yvonne, if you're listening, have a great week. Feel better, Yvonne, and stay safe. And we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye. Now, why isn't the song going? There we go. Okay, now for part 2 of this, when I hit stop, it didn't actually stop the live stream, and even when I left the room in Riverside, it didn't stop the live stream. So there's like an extra 2 hours of just a blank black screen with no sound, which I may trim off the YouTube. We'll see. But Anyway, I'm going to try again to stop it. We'll see what happens if the thing is long, but whatever. And then I'll edit this thing and yeah, get it out soon because it's already Monday UTC, which is later than I would like for this. Anyway, I need to stop talking. Bye. Okay, let's see if it stops the way it should this time. And then I will start the downloads, which take a while. And then I'll go clean the living room, which was the next number 2 round.